Welcome to the Multiverse Infinitum ADHD podcast number one, where we're just going to go over a few things with the condition and just talk about it overall. So I'll be the host, the Fox, the host of the channel here, and I have three guests here today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Me? Yeah. Okay. Hi. My name's Luke. Also, I'm TeamNoCo.
What's up? I'm Gareth. Find me at bonnart.arts on Instagram.
Jeremy, Spencer's dad.
And so basically today, the first and foremost, we just want to go over some of the experiential existence of this condition, all that diagnosis. So first, if you'd like to start off with Luke, how long have you had it, and if you're on?
I've
What's
had
your
it. I've
experience
had
with
it
it?
since I've been diagnosed since age 6, and I took medication up until the end of middle school, and then it started to decrease during high school.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And would you say that a lot of those like mannerisms and stuff still are with your everyday life, or what?
Oh
has
yeah,
been,
every day. Yeah.
What's your experience been?
Well, my worst experiences with it is when I try and focus on one thing, but then my mind will think of like 13 other different things to do while I'm trying to focus on that one thing.
Yeah,
So it makes thinking and problem solving really difficult for me.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good insight. I'm sure that you guys could probably talk more to that.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I'm excited about talking about in this podcast is especially like, well, most not even talking about it, but hearing about it from other people is like, you know, what it's like to live with this, and like not necessarily like I don't want to make this podcast entirely about like the disadvantages, but mostly maybe relatable aspects. I'm pretty
Totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a remedy in that too, right? I think maybe you can attest that too. Like hearing more stories that are similar to yours kind of empowers you in that struggle.
Oh yeah, this scripted little scenario here, like, it's hard for me to do. How hard was it for you to not interrupt and say like something when he was telling you the first part?
Pretty hard.
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't feel organic,
Right.
and it doesn't feel like flowy. And on that note, I think probably the best like remedy for ADD is like really just rolling with it.
Yeah.
And I think
It's-
most people that have it develop that kind of like flow. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he talks about that all the time. One thing, and maybe you're already going to know what I'm going to say because it's exactly what we talk about, is
Right.
I can start somewhere, and especially if we've talked about this same subject a lot of times, you can kind of fill in the blanks and race to the end of the
Just to get
conversation.
it in.
And you're like, just hurry it up. Like, I know where you're going with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
relate.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
And interrupting is a bad one. I don't mean to do that, but I have a really short thought process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either that or forget the idea pretty much.
Exactly.
I definitely try to be more patient with it, but I've noticed that when talking to you guys, I'm like, let it rock. I personally am not diagnosed or don't know anything about it, but I also just have different viewpoints on
That's
that,
kinda
and we're not
cool
going to
about
get onto it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, I guess that does, I mean, unless there's anything else that you really got to get off your chest experientially, that does lead us to our next topic, which is symptoms. So what are, at least textbook or perhaps anecdotally, what are the symptoms that you've experienced or that you struggle with the most with the condition?
Oh, struggling though.
Mm.
Probably keeping track of like all my stuff. I don't know. I've lost like some major things. I lost my like rent's worth a month or a month's worth of rent once.
Mm.
Bunsworth or wet?
Yeah.
Do you have
Maybe
dyslexia as
mumbling?
well?
No.
Oh, mumbling kind of.
That's
changes
not-
the word.
That's not dyslexia. That's with your reading.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think it works with talking too. I don't know. This is about
I think so.
ADHD.
I don't know.
Okay, so
Hey, when he says
Hey, speaking of which, I know we were looking up what's the difference between ADD and ADHD.
I will look that up.
There's a bunch of people that have random ass diagnoses we didn't keep track of.
real
Yeah.
quick, when you say ADHD, does it flash in front of you? Do you like see it?
Sometimes. I don't know what else I'm thinking about.
Do you ever do that?
Yeah, sometimes I
Like
can notice it.
whatever you're doing, if it's something simple like a number or something,
Yeah.
you'll see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, good.
That's interesting. I've never really thought about that before.
Say ADHD.
Yeah, ADHD.
It pops up on.
Not all the time. It did when
Well,
the
you
first
gu-
time I heard it.
you guys
It was when I
already-
heard it first, for sure, but it's never something
It
I've
pops
ever
up
heard
in big
anyone
collegiate
talk about.
letters
That's
for
really
me.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Isn't
lighting
it?
too.
Isn't that trippy?
I thought that was kind of because
I don't know,
I
you guys
do a
are
lot of
talking at the
art,
same time.
and so I'm like,
Right.
Well,
whenever
I
we,
really can't have a conversation.
whenever
like
you
that.
say ADHD, it pops up in my head in front of me, like in a transparent. It says ADHD in collegiate letters.
I don't
Every
know if
time.
that's psychosis.
No.
I just-
Well, I thought it was because I was an artist, so I'm always envisioning things, but I've never thought it would like be a symptom related to ADHD. Another symptom is definitely like caffeine and the different kind of response to caffeine. You know, I've heard a lot of my ADD friends, you know, like and myself included, like drink a lot of caffeine before we go to bed because it like kind of helps like calm and focus your mind, which ends up being more important to like rest and relax than it does is to like stay awake. And so like I don't know, I think that's probably one of the big things since you brought up struggles is like being able to think about one thing on a specific train of thought. And you know, I'm not on medication right now, but when I have been on medication, that's a big thing I keep thinking about. Its main benefit to me is pretty much that, being able to like work through a single train of thought at one time, whether it's about something outside of me or internal. It just is really beneficial for that. But I think that it all comes with its own stake of you know, dangers too. Maybe we'll get into that later.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys definitely did jump ahead of our script, but since you asked, I'll put it out here so that we can have the vocabulary. ADD, which is attention deficit disorder. You guys step out?
Yeah, I guess
No
that
worries.
works.
Attention deficit disorder is an outdated term for what is now called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So ADD is just a outdated term for ADHD. That's the difference.
And you were talking a little bit about the hyperactive side of that, being able to like work for really long hours or be like kind of like exotically devoted to something, you know.
That's from the Child Mind Institute, by the way.
Which is maybe one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough is the beneficial aspects and how to really work with your mind and roll with the punches. Yeah.
Oh man.
So we could talk
That's
about
a
the
huge one.
advantages as well, but is that pretty much all we want to say about the things you
Symptoms?
struggle with?
No, I'm sure they'll come back up though.
Okay,
Yeah, it
what
will.
are some positive things then?
You want to go positive still?
Well, if that's what
Yeah.
the conversation seems like it's
Well,
going.
it's gonna
you
go
guys are
back
talking
and
about
forth.
superheroes.
It's gonna go.
That's
back
fine.
and
I
forth.
just want to try to be
Right.
my best to keep us on track as the
Gotcha.
host. And so far we're jumping through stuff, but we are still getting to stuff.
Okay.
Maybe right now a good turn would be, what do you think are some, especially when you were growing up, or seeing the change? What's the stigma of having any sort of mental health disorder, but especially one that would require diagnosis and medication?
That was. Well, I'm old school.
You're right.
There wasn't even any diagnosis for it before.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you had a short attention span or something.
And you were a bad kid or something.
Yeah, you were either a brat or whatever your problem was.
Right.
So
There wasn't the vocabulary
no, at all.
or the
Not at
medical
all.
literature.
No.
Right. What do you think, Gareth, since you are, different generation of that growing up, and also since you've, been medicated with it as well?
I wasn't medicated until I was like 20 though, so I kind of went out and
A late diagnosis.
Yeah,
We're
well,
gonna
I
get to
would-
that.
my parents really raised me on the idea that even if I was ADD or anything, I was gonna still have to overcome the same challenges as anyone else in life. They didn't want me to be medicated early in life either. So like, I think that's probably a little bit more beneficial because it's given me some like perspective and like more tools to just manage in my daily life. But I think personally in my own life, there's also been a huge stigma around like medication of any kind, especially for psychological stuff. And even if it doesn't really stem from my family, it's definitely coming from somewhere. On the inverse side of that, I think it's also, it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about the beneficial sides of ADD and how to work within your mind is it's given as a crutch to a lot of people. They just told them, you're ADD, you're like this, you can't do these other
Here's
things.
your limit.
Yeah. And so I think like maybe even if it's not so much a stigmatized anymore, it is
Still a limiter.
yeah, it's something people perceive as a limit, or it's easy to give yourself excuses behind it.
And do you think that that's common with most neurodivergent people?
I think so, yeah. I think there's not enough talked about like beneficial aspects of neurodivergent.
Yeah, and also allowing them to, like you said, have their own challenges and grow in different ways.
Exactly.
Albert Einstein has a really great quote for that. It's like, if I tell a goldfish to climb a tree, I'm gonna think it's really stupid.
I think that's a pretty great idea to
But if I watch it swim,
summarize this behind.
I'll see it brilliant. And I knew this, one of my neighbors, who I don't know what he's diagnosed with, but we all know he was freaking, missing a little something. But then he got around machines and video games, and he's a literal savant. He could take anything apart, put it back together, and we're like, how the hell did you make that work? He's like, it's honestly simple. And we're like, dude, you literally can barely wipe your own ass, basically.
Mm.
So yeah, maybe he was
Most
autistic,
likely, yeah.
and he was just super honed in on one style.
Yeah,
So
you could be way high
you
functioning.
want to come in?
Oh yeah.
So this is Willie, by the way.
Yeah.
He's ADHD too. No, I'm just kidding.
He does.
He's a good boy.
Is Willie on camera?
Hi, buddy.
I don't know. He's smiling though.
Yeah, he's a
Willie's
smiler.
his dog.
Love him.
Haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
So with that, Luke, we were just talking about some of the. We're just talking about some of the stigma that we've experienced or
Yeah.
that we've noticed just in the culture around it. And I think you have been diagnosed the longest out of anybody.
Yeah.
So you're probably most familiar with the medical literature as well as just being able to tell people
Yeah.
medical forms and stuff. I have this or had this.
Yeah.
What have you experienced in that realm?
Yeah, I've told a couple people like here and there. Like I told most of my friends throughout like middle school and high school, like, oh yeah, I have ADHD, and they're like, oh, how long? And I was like, oh, since I was like age 6.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh really? And they were asking me like, oh, how difficult is it to do this, or how difficult is it to focus on this? And I'm like, believe it or not, it's a lot tougher for me than you realize. It's like most people out there who are normal, it's like they will know how to do it. Whereas me, I have to think really hard on it and be like, okay, like how is this gonna work? Is this really gonna work? There's a
And
lot
was the
of thinking.
medication helpful, or do you not really remember a time when
Now Willie's on
you had to
camera.
do
Yeah,
that?
it is.
When you had to do that without medication?
With medication, it definitely slowed it down a little bit, and
Okay.
then they took me off of it to see how it worked, and it worked a lot better to where like I wasn't really having that much trouble with it, and so
Okay.
they just kept me off the medication for it.
What are some, I mean, and interrupt at any time if you need to,
No.
but what are some habits or strategies that you used or that was given, some resources that were given to you to maybe help improve your condition or maybe just improve your existence with it? Like you said, it got better over time.
So for me, what I did is, like I would either read a bunch of books or I would like talk to friends, and eventually, like that started helping out a lot. And then that's when I started moving into cannabis actually.
Okay.
And I've been using cannabis for that. It's because it helps with my ADHD, it helps with my anxiety, it helps with a little bit of like insomnia as well. It's been helping with that a lot too.
Right.
But yeah, that's one of the main things that's been helping me throughout the past 3-4 years now.
Okay, so that's sort of the substitution.
Yeah, it's a substitution for it.
Okay. And well, for you guys, I'm sure you also use cannabis, but you still have some of these symptoms or these issues. What do you think are some things that help you stay on track or maybe mitigate some of the downsides so that you can maximize the benefits of your condition?
Repetition and habits for sure. Like
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
put things,
Gotta have
what you
some-
do.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that like caffeine falls into like a pretty big self-medication part of most people's lives is drinking like a lot of caffeine in order to be able to like really start your mind and hone it. But also, kind of like rolling with it too. So
Yeah.
you have your routines, but you also like kind of like learn how to like
Definitely go.
jump
whatever
through
comes
like
up.
whatever you comes up,
Yeah.
whatever you want to be
It's helped
attention.
a lot.
I heard about a study the other day that they found that, and this might be just true of everyone, but on a neurological level, people with especially extreme cases of ADD have a easy time focusing on things that have a high level of relevance or a high level of consequence. So something that's dangerous or like thrill junkie, or it's much easier for
Dopamine.
yeah.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah, and so if you give someone a piece of paper and say solve these math problems or nothing happens and there's no consequences,
Right.
then it's
you're-
extremely difficult. Yeah, but these are also people
Solid,
that
If rent
it's a
depends on
basic.
it.
yeah.
Yes.
So there's kind of a duality to that between
Okay.
like being able to respond to high
And until
context.
it is a problem or an issue, you'll put it off all the way until it is.
Yeah.
And then-
So a high
and
level
then-
of procrastination
and then you just,
versus
yes,
and then
you
go.
just come through and then you kill it.
Yeah.
I think I've heard a lot of people describe that as either I'm on or I'm off.
Mhm.
There's no in between. I
Do you
that's
think that
definitely
that
good
is also,
for you.
I'm not saying you guys are, but do you think maybe that is also a bipolar thing?
I don't know. I honestly I don't
Where
know.
you ride high and then you dip low?
No, it's not that.
No?
No, it wouldn't be that.
No,
Okay.
it's not that at all. It's pressure is a good motivator.
Pressure's a good motivator,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it.
It is because like
Do-
if
would you
there's
guys agree?
deadlines.
Deadlines?
I need deadlines.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How
Because
would
if I
you guys?
don't, it'll go forever.
Absolutely. How would you guys say that that's impacted you throughout like high school or just schooling in general?
Yeah, I was gonna say that definitely impacted me because especially like towards like the final year of like senior year,
Yeah.
where they basically said, oh yeah, this has to be due by this day. If it's not in by this day, then you're not gonna
You
graduate.
don't graduate.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
big.
It was a
yeah.
big deal for
It
me.
looms on you, and that is that a motivator?
Yeah, that was a motivator. I was like, all right, I'm getting out of here. Like, I'm done.
What about you, Gareth?
I don't know. I find it hard to respond to things like that. You know, maybe if it's something big like you're not going to graduate, but it has to be something I really want for me to like really be able to care about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what we're
makes
talking
it
about, the
easy,
pressure.
though. No, well, he's talking about if we like it'll keep our interest, and that's dopamines.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
Yeah, and so
we
even
chase
like
that no matter
like
what.
under
So
a
if you
high
like
sense
something,
and huh.
personally,
And I've had a lot of people notice that I'm pretty ADD throughout my life. You know, before I ever like was diagnosed by a doctor, a lot of my like friends and peers noticed things like that. Why was that relevant? It's because
This is relevant enough to cut him off, I guess.
well, I had
I know
had
how
to.
that goes. It had to be.
I had to say nothing,
Yeah,
dude.
you gotta say something.
No worries.
So that's definitely one of the symptoms.
How
One
much
the
of that do you think,
drawbacks.
though, and this is obviously, so don't take this as offense or it's a place of ignorance, but how much of that do you guys think is simply like paying attention?
No.
none.
I mean, if we're
So I'll pay attention
interested,
to
'Cause
anything
I can
really
hear
deeply,
these-
man.
yeah,
I can
and
relate to
and
these in
explore
small
other things
ways.
at the same time.
The pressure can't be applied to, oh, that's where I was at. A pressure, like, even, like, really intense things, you know, maybe if it's just do something like pay my rent, I'll really respond to that, but, like,
Yeah.
other than
Yeah,
that,
that's
like,
exactly
even
what
extreme social pressure or, like, getting good grades or anything like that, every time I haven't wanted to do it myself, I just haven't done it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, maybe it's a little bit of finding, like, things that self-motivate you, but it's also a lot, like, you know, that's not going to come from outside. So, like, you can't just be like, oh, you're just not paying attention. You know, because that's also irrelevant. So if someone tells you that, it's like,
I'm not saying I'm telling you that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to
Right.
come off as saying I'm saying
I
you need to pay
literally say it
attention.
I
out
got
loud to
you.
myself.
but no, but like even people have
Okay.
told me that throughout my entire life. I'm just like, whatever. You don't know what's going on in my mind.
Well,
I'm
he's
doing
saying he
it.
self-regulates in that way.
Yeah.
I've never, I still haven't been diagnosed. I got an appointment though. But from what I understand, I'm about as ADHD as it gets. I mean, as far as like typical, if there was a typical, but the whole cutting off thing and all that stuff, and I still don't, I don't take any medication or anything like that for it.
Can you also talk about the experience of maybe everything that's going on at once is another thing that might
Right now?
be difficult to talk about only one thing? So when I say pay attention, you're like, to what?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
right now, I got.
Right?
Oh
Too
yeah.
many things going
Yeah,
on.
Like
and
right
that's
now,
I
I
think
hear the
everybody.
refrigerator-
Yeah.
When I hear the refrigerator going, I'm worried about what Lily's doing right now.
Yeah,
And all
and,
that
then,
stuff.
and then you're gonna, what are you gonna draw later, or oh shit, when I go
No,
home,
I'm
the
fat.
gas.
On the camera. So.
Do I look fat on
I
camera?
always need to. Yeah, I was like, man, I gotta go to the gym. All this is going on at the same time. The refrigerator.
Yeah,
Mm.
and
All
then
that
every
stuff.
time I say it, it pops up in letters
Yeah.
ADHD.
Yep, every single time.
Yeah, that seems very.
That's funny because when you did it that time, it was that big. Because usually it was the last times it was like this
I
big.
framed it.
Yeah, and it was like ADHD. So do that like that, and just like put it over here for me.
Yeah.
I'll give you a time.
Say you gotta say it. Put it over here. Say
Where?
ADHD.
Over here?
Way over here. Yeah.
Okay, ready?
Yeah. Go ahead.
ADHD.
Okay. Thank you.
Wasn't that the wrong direction?
Yeah.
Is it Arabic? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's on camera.
No,
it's
but it
reversed.
was in front of your face too. So can you put it over here? Here.
ADHD.
Thank you.
There we go.
All right.
Can you do that?
So habits.
You don't do that? Oh shit.
What are
Not
some?
like that. Sometimes, especially if my eyes are closed. But
What are some
Not
other
like
habits
crazy
that have
like
helped
that.
you guys stay productive given the challenges that you had?
Notes.
Especially, like you said, it has to be something you want. So maybe you've had troubles with like work or school, but what are things that you do to help you do the things that you want to do? Your passions. Like I know that you like making music.
Yeah. Yeah.
start them consistently. Man, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I can
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
You just get started and you're just like, all right, I'm doing it, and it doesn't have to be good and it doesn't have to be bad. But once
that
you
really
get
challenging?
started, it's a decision
But
for
is it
sure.
really
To be
challenging?
sure, yeah, it's a challenging decision.
Because if you're gonna do something, you'd be like, all right, I'm gonna do this. You go over here. And, fuck. I'm gonna do this real quick. And
Yeah,
then
even
you'll
sometimes,
put
like-
something in your way.
Yeah.
You'll like focus on the thing that was in your way
Even-
first,
yeah,
and then on your way to take care of the thing on your way, you'll find 4 more things,
Yep.
and you'll be stuck in the bedroom or something,
Mhm.
like doing something.
I think a way to
It's
describe that would be like sometimes even assembling the materials to start a task
Yes.
becomes like more difficult than that task in
yeah.
and of itself.
Mhm.
Just because there are so many options
Yeah.
for
And the
tangents.
options,
Yeah. It's like, well,
Variability.
I like the other day I was like starting to do an art piece and I ended up like washing my car and I was just like, what? I started like came down there for a pencil and then I put some grocery bags in my car and then I noticed my car was dirty and I was like, well, I should just take care of that right now. And then I was like, oh wait, I was about to start that art piece.
Everything.
Like, yeah, and I
Yeah.
was just like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, now I'm at the
Absolutely.
car washing place instead of grabbing a pencil. And I think that's a great way to describe ADD.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I've had something similar to that too, where it's like I'm in my room and I'm like, oh, I gotta go wash dishes, and I was like, wait, should I also make my bed? And then I'll be like, oh wait, I need to go outside and smoke this, and then I go back in and I was like, wait, what was I doing again? Like,
So
I don't
what
have
if
that
you-
where I think of like multiple things, and I'm just like, I need to focus on one thing.
So here's what I'm saying. I can relate to all of that, and then what I do, and maybe this is the difference, and this is maybe the chemical imbalance. But what I do, just everything you're saying. Oh, should I make my bed? And then I go past. Oh, should I do this? And then I'm gonna go for a smoke.
Yep.
I'll say, I'm gonna do my bed, take the smoke for a break, come back, wash dishes, wash my hands, then I can play video games.
You know, when
And
I
I'll
was
get them all done in sequence. I don't stack them on top of me. I put
when
them
I
in
was
front of
medicated,
myself.
I was really able to do that. You know, I was really able to make a cognitive list and limit it to things that were like,
I trained myself to do that.
I don't know.
So I wonder if there are certain habits that we could
There's
do,
things-
or like you said, maybe medication that can put you on track that would be super helpful for people in this condition. I think
Yeah.
that information is invaluable.
I have notes are a big one. Do you guys write a lot of notes?
No, I do here and there sometimes, depending on
I
what it
got
is.
notebooks everywhere, and I don't know where they're at, but they all have good notes in them somewhere. But I never find them in time.
Mm.
But it's so bad that I have it written on my windshield in my truck. You seen it? Like in dry erase marker. That's how I keep my list. That it has to be literally right in front of my face.
Mm.
Because I went the other day, and I was thinking about all this other stuff, and just coming from a client's house. Went to go drop something off at a place I had to pick something up.
Mhm.
Dropped the thing off, took off, and then I looked at my windshield and I was like, oh, I gotta pick this up. And so I had to go back and pick it up, and then, but like, it's just rough keeping track of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we got through pretty much everything, I guess, unless you guys have like different
No.
resources that you
No,
think
no,
would
no.
be possible, that would be helpful. Not everything. I just mean through the
Oh,
list.
okay.
And then I do want to finish on overdiagnosis and what we think maybe, like, is it a cop-out to say, oh, I'm ADHD?
Oh, I haven't used it that way at all.
Not you, I'm just saying in general, that's a discussion that I'd like to have.
Oh.
And do people do that, and do you think that because maybe it's becoming more socially acceptable nowadays, that there's an overdiagnosis and over-medication of this very serious and very real disease? Because now there's a counter movement of people saying, well, that's not even real. And people were saying in questions
was
like I was
one of them.
saying, they're like, oh no, you just need to fucking pay attention.
Well, so,
Mm.
But I was just playing the devil's advocate there. I didn't want to come from a place of ignorance and just wave my finger at you guys.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to get information on this, and that's why I think it was important to first talk about our experiences, because regardless of what the case is, your experiences are very real and they're tangible. It's just what can we do about them, right?
yeah.
And if you can put your finger on something, it's really easy. It's much easier to actually work towards a solution. Well, I mean, what else did you have going on there?
Oh, there's advantages for sure.
The advantages?
Yeah, I was gonna say like maybe there's a little bit of like.
He started scrolling. He's like, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
about to."
Well, he's still present. I don't know. That's also one of the
You can
speaking
scroll,
of an
it's fine. I
advantage is
just,
being able to do two
It's
things at
fine.
once pretty effectively, like he was just doing. I'm sure you were still like on some level paying really
Oh
close
yeah,
attention
yeah.
to
I
the
was hearing
conversation.
everything you guys were talking
But
about. I
if
was
you
just
don't give
looking at
yourself,
something else.
you know, and
Yeah.
I've like
Yeah.
assumed this stance, even like on the sing. I don't know, which is like you have to kind of do two things at once. And
Mhm.
so like maybe there, I think you, maybe I don't notice very much overdiagnosis, but I do notice diagnosis is being given to people as crutches a little bit,
Mm.
or being given to them in a negative light so
Well, there's
that
people
they.
that want to do Adderall.
Well,
So,
yeah,
you know,
and
see,
that's a
'cause
big
I
part of the
don't-
over
I don't do
medication.
any medication, so
Mhm.
I know that I know a lot of people who just abuse it.
Yeah.
But and they're not like on the same level that I am, and it seems like you guys are kind of got the same stuff going on,
Mhm.
and so I think there might be a lot of people faking it.
I think it's also overly medicated just
Well,
right off
some
the
they get-
basis. You know, they start medicating people at like 6 to 10.
Right.
You know, and I think like especially with a medication like Adderall,
Yeah.
it's pretty intense. It's pretty psychoactive, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
has like a really powerful effect.
Mhm.
And so I think there's definitely an over medication, especially in children. And
Yeah.
that kind of comes with the stigma of it. Is like you're kind of they address you as being broken on some sense rather than just different. And so being addressed as being broken and being told you need a medication rather than just need a different like lifestyle, I think is a really big impact of it. You know.
Does that come from the
School
neurochemistry?
shooters
Huh?
were-
I think it
how
comes
many
from-
school shooters were on Adderall? Just to look it up.
I think it's comes from an over reliance on prescription medication in America. Actually, you know, I think that once you're given any kind of psychoactive disorder,
Is
there's
that a
huge
pharmaceutical problem in general, like big pharma?
Well,
Yeah, I think that-
the doctors get incentives for
Yeah.
pushing that stuff out. And
exactly
that's-
it's incentivized doctors, and
Exactly.
it's because there's incentivized doctors. There's been a lot of lobbying on the part of big pharma to avoid other solutions other than drugs.
And
You
just
know,
like anything
and
else.
so it's a kind of like it's of course it's a problem on both sides, but we do I think
I'm gonna cut you
in
off.
America especially over medicate a lot of things, and that's not something that's secret here.
Lost it. Damn it. Yeah, it was gone.
The school shooters?
No, it wasn't about that. I already passed that. No, it's okay. It was something else. It's nothing that we brought up, so it's it'll come back in a few minutes.
All right. Well,
That's
I
another.
mean,
thing.
yeah, we're
But-
definitely getting some good stuff here out of the
Oh,
way.
no.
I'm just gonna
Did
leave
you
it up
look
to
it up?
free form at this point because
Yeah.
we did get through a lot of points today,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think that this is beneficial. But I would like to have more discussions like this. I'm just gonna leave it up to the free form now. Like anything else that you'd like to add or anything else that you'd like to discuss, that's fine. But we got through all of it. So
Cool.
Cool. Did you look that up?
I tried. We didn't really
there
see
wasn't a
anything
solid
on it.
figure.
Yeah.
No, there probably wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Mhm.
But if you look deeper, if you look past Google and all that stuff and get some format
Mhm.
from some other people, I'm pretty sure that every one of them, if not 90% of them, of the school
On
shooters
medication.
or mass shooters were on medication.
Yeah.
So, or had been for a long time,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
right?
And I think that's what you're talking too about.
Well,
the
that's kind of what
psychology.
I was talking about. I didn't get to discuss this a lot. I had to discuss some of the better parts of Adderall, but there's a reason I stopped taking it. Is because it, like, while it does increase your focus by a good bit, and it does make a lot of things easier,
Yeah.
it also makes emotional management extremely
Oh,
difficult, which
yeah,
is why I
big
don't
time.
think you should give it to children.
Big time.
It's really hard to, like, not have an overreaction to your own emotions.
Mhm.
And whether it comes from, like, you're on a stimulant, so everything seems exciting, and you kind of have that same sense towards your own self, and it just makes it hard to be like truly calm
Yeah.
and like sort through your like shit. And so
Mhm.
that's why I had to stop taking it.
That's normal. I mean, I've never taken medication for it, and same with me though.
Yeah, but it's like it makes it like apocalyptic,
Right.
and it makes it like you can't. I don't know.
Get over
Well,
the bullshit.
just recently is when I've even came to think that I had it. Honestly, everybody else is like, "Oh, I could have told you that." Well, fucking, why didn't you say something?
Right,
You know
and
what I
all the
mean?
doctors that
Because I had the hyperthyroidism,
right.
and so that made me go. I did huge weight gain and then huge weight loss, and then I had anxiety, and went through a huge bout of that stuff. And then I got medicated for that with methimazole. And so that helped out a lot, but then I still had a bunch of stuff going on that didn't make sense because the symptoms of hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease,
Mhm.
is kind of the same as ADHD, so a lot of them.
Okay.
So I'm just now figuring that out because I thought it was just that, and then once the medication, because it helped my thyroid,
Right.
but I still had the other stuff going on, so I was like, well, this isn't working.
Yeah, there's some other stuff going on.
Yeah, I guess there is
That's
kind of
what
a
it
dual-edged sword to that too, is because it may be. I find a lot of the problems that I have now, off my medication, are kind of the opposite. Rather than being overly
Mhm.
reactive to my own emotions, I'm kind of underly reactive sometimes, and it's
Mm.
way harder for me to sit with a certain idea for the amount of time I need to really understand it. And so it's kind of like.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
big. What do you have to say about that, Louis?
Mm.
I just thought you had something on the tip of your
No,
tongue.
I
I
did
wanted
not.
to give you an opportunity.
No, I didn't. I didn't have anything on its own.
But yeah, you definitely would agree then that was like maybe difficult in school.
Oh
being
yeah.
medicated
Oh
younger.
yeah. Big time.
Do you think maybe you got in trouble more often just
Mhm.
because
just because most of the time it was very hard for me to focus or pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like they would give me a paper and they're like, all right, we're going to be working on these, and I'd stare at it for like 10 minutes, and then something would capture my eye, and I'd just look over there for a while, and then I'd look back down and be like, oh, wait, what was I doing? Like, I would have that happen constantly throughout high school. And
Oh, yeah.
that, and also I was horrible at math. Like, I could never figure it out for the life of me.
Mm. I see.
Yeah.
Well, I still catch myself like even wrong on my table.
Are you trying to rush this
Just
along?
having two
Are you
conversations.
trying to zip this along?
I don't want to rush us along. I just want it to be readable. If we just have like a bunch of like mumbling conversations, I want us to say stuff. It's great, and I'm not leading it where we're going. What do you guys have to say?
Say it. He was talking about it in school about classwork and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, because I'd have my stuff done, and then I would start drawing on the back. I've been drawing. Do you draw?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
You do, of course. But I used to draw on it, and I'd get in trouble for drawing on it, but my work would already be done.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
But what else do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit there with your hands folded.
No.
No.
I used to
Yeah,
stare
nice
at the
little
window
worker.
And this-
all
this is
day.
back
Any
in the
classroom that had a
70s,
window,
right?
Mm-hmm.
any classroom that had a window, I'd just stare outside and I'd watch how the trees
Any
move the
classroom have a
branches.
window. Classrooms don't have windows, some?
Some of them.
Yeah,
Some
some
of
of them
At
do.
the inside of the building, you know, because
On
mine,
the
yeah,
interior.
Yeah.
because mine was kind of like a square.
Oh, okay. 'Cause every school I've ever went to was, every single one of them, they were all faced back of the class to the outside doors.
Ferris
Oh, really?
Was it? Ferris Bueller?
This
I think
dude's
it's
from Ferris
California.
Bueller. This dude's from Breakfast Club. So
Mhm.
Right?
My calc teacher also used to
Well,
let
plus
me.
from California though, so everything's like ranch
Right.
style. So
Yeah.
there's no stacked
Yeah.
buildings up there.
everything's different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No basements out there.
Even a blue.
No, everything was on the main line because it's a floodplain.
Floodplain. I see. Cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, what are your guys like? Some of your guys' hobbies that you like to engage in, just to fuck around
This
with,
week?
or just to improve on, I guess.
Okay. Do you guys start a bunch of stuff and like get completely into it, buy all the stuff to do it, and then get bored with it?
Sometimes.
Yeah,
So I
sometimes.
started a whole shirt company, a whole clothing line, remember? And ran with it and did good stuff with it, and then just lost it. Just it got boring.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I
But
think
it
that's
was
a big
that's-
part of creativity in general, though. Maybe less.
Is it creativity or self-governance?
I mean, we went into
I think it's creativity.
Creativity.
For sure. I think especially with something like a shirt
Start
company
a
where
line.
you're like creating your own thing,
By
and then you're
hand.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're like, you know, I think like I hear, especially on the art community, and maybe like more is like being on the graphic side, like people do that all the time. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, this is my style, and then they give it up and they start something new. And you know, that's just kind of like the creative flow.
Yeah.
You have like tides of things, and then you like let them go and start new projects.
Well, I think that might be another good thing to talk about then. How much do you think of artists are maybe not only ADHD, but like neurodivergent in general, and just are on the other side? Because all of you guys like music, art, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sculptures, weird projects.
oh yeah, the playlist. Did you want to do the music? Talk about the music thing?
Music.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, like music for me, I can't stand most music or hearing music in the background or anything like that. Not really big on it. But like when I listen to music, even when we're having conversations, I just it kind of zones me in and I keep it loud. You rode with me in the truck before.
Every time I hang out with you, it's very similar to hanging out with Gareth. It's going on. He has a playlist, and he
Yeah.
can hear it, but
Right.
almost nobody else can hear it.
Right.
Or it's going on just enough on the background where he's like, all right, I'm with it. And he's also probably drawing. But then I'll be saying stuff,
Yeah.
and then he'll be like, yeah, I don't know, because what I feel, and I'm like, I don't even know you were paying attention.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You were drawing and listening to music, and then you're like, here's what I have to say about that.
Do you ever stop people and just be like, hey, I'm just listening for a second?
Pumpkin.
Just,
Oh, yeah.
Just,
Oh,
Check
yeah.
this out. Check
Because
this out.
even though you hear it a million times,
Okay.
like if it's
It'd
your,
be good.
you're just like, hang on.
And I've noticed.
Go ahead.
I noticed at the start of this conversation, you know, you and I started to like say something, and Spencer was like, "Hey, you guys are talking at the same time." And I think maybe I've always had a like way easier time talking to other people who are ADD because of that exact trait of being able to have two conversations at one time, and just like going with
That
it.
drives
You
me
know?
fucking nuts.
You
Yeah.
almost like listen while you're talking and then like
Well, I
swap
was
points and
totally
swap
paying
back and
attention to what
forth.
he was saying, and but like,
Yeah,
when he was talking, I was like, look this up, and he was looking it up, and you know what I mean?
it's flowing,
Like,
man. It's
yeah.
flowing.
I can do 1 and 1,
Yeah.
but I can't do 2.
And look something up.
It's
and
almost
cut it
like I
off.
have to. Like if I'm not doing 2 things, I can't do anything. And the only thing that's like really pulls me out of that is like kind of playing music and playing piano. But like for the most part, if I'm drawing or if I'm doing anything else, I have to be doing 2 things. You know, there's no
You
other
can't
option.
Draw in the quiet, sitting there, because that refrigerator is gonna drive you crazy.
Or
Me
like
personally.
I don't know, I'll just like my body has to be in some sort of motion or something. Thank you. I think that's a good place to wrap it.
Yeah, do you guys have anything else?
A lot, but I'm down.
I want to do a second podcast where we maybe go through some more of the literature and pop through some stuff. But this was mostly the experience, the things we went over,
Yeah.
the experiences of it, the diagnosis, the medication, just some of the basic things. And then the next podcast, maybe we'll go through some more of the literature and maybe some other media that you guys have you might like to share. So,
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. Any finishing remarks? Good stuff. That's a good place to wrap. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining. Click the like button, subscribe, and as always, have a wonderful day.